Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight, the pandemic is not over. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the COVID-19 pandemic won't be under control until the spring of next year. But America's top infectious disease specialist said that it is also subject to vaccine skeptics changing their mind. Fauci believes that the Pfizer vaccine's full approval by U.S. Food and Drug Administration is likely to boost vaccinations amongst the 90 million hesitant. This is even more urgent as a recent study from South Korea has found that COVID's Delta variant has an initial viral load 300 times greater than the original virus. Meanwhile, doctors are growing angrier at the unvaccinated. Doctors in Florida staged a protest this week saying that most people showing up at hospitals with COVID have not received the shot. In neighboring Alabama, the state's Department of Public Health has released new data to show just how effective vaccinations are against the deadly virus. It says 94% of deaths in the state from COVID have been amongst the unvaccinated. In related news, Mississippi is pleading with people to stop using a livestock drug to treat COVID. Ivermectin is sometimes prescribed to people for head lice or skin conditions. However, the formulas are different for humans and animals. President Biden has decided to stick to the August 31st exit date from Afghanistan. Zabihullah Mujahid, a Taliban spokesman, noted today that chaos at the airport remained a dangerous problem. He said that the road to the airport is now open only for foreigners. He also said that the road is now closed to Afghan citizens to prevent people from crowding the airport. The Taliban statement followed the U.S. announcement that it is evacuating only American citizens and green card holders. It's not clear if the CIA Director William J. Burns' talks this week with Taliban are connected to this decision by the U.S. and the Taliban. About 16,000 people were evacuated over the past 24 hours from Afghanistan through the Kabul airport, the Pentagon said on Monday. General Hank Taylor told reporters that 61 military, commercial, and charter flights involving a number of countries have flown out. Of the total evacuated that day, 11,000 were taken out by U.S. military airlift operations, Taylor said. Taylor also said that the number of people relocated from Afghanistan since July on U.S. flights has reached 42,000. Most of them, about 37,000, left once intense airlift operations started on August 14th, as the Taliban took over Kabul. Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby said the focus remains on getting U.S. evacuation operations done by August 31st. This is the deadline set by President Joe Biden for completing the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. At this moment, it will require withdrawing the 5,800 U.S. troops who have essentially run airport operations and maintained security since August 14th. France has placed 5 repatriated Afghan nationals under surveillance over their alleged links with the Taliban, the country's interior minister announced on Monday. Gerald Darmanin said in a tweet that the French government will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure the safety of the French. Right-wing politicians in France, like Darmanin, have opposed the government's move to provide refuge to Afghan nationals. Local media reported that the 5 men were evacuated from Kabul and boarded a flight to Paris on August 18th. They were placed under an individual measure of administrative control and surveillance of France's anti-terrorism laws. However, French Islamophobia is now dictating public policy in another first for France. France has otherwise repatriated 1,300 Afghan nationals and their families who were employees of the French embassy. In related news, Stephen Miller, architect of former President Donald Trump's Muslim ban, has been raising the alarm on rescuing Afghans. Meanwhile, Pakistan has allowed thousands of Afghans to enter the country and has airlifted about 3,000 foreigners.
We have, Pakistan has facilitated the evacuation of 3,234 foreign nationals and international organizational helps. Out of these 3,234, 323 are Pakistanis and the rest are foreigners.
Mission Network News, a Christian news channel, is reporting that the demand for Christianity amongst Afghan Pathans is increasing. International Media Ministries says many people are reaching out and asking for information about the world's largest religion, Christianity. IMM claims this is because of the increase in persecution from the Taliban. The Christian missionaries therefore have released a Pashtun language version of the video, The Women of the Bible. It says once God sets a Muslim woman free, she becomes an unstoppable force for God. The missionary group says, Muslims have never been more open. We're trying to inspire the body of Christ to wake up and realize that the Muslim harvest is here. The Taliban said Afghanistan and South Korea can mutually benefit from their war-torn countries' untapped mineral fields. The group made the offer as it seeks to strengthen economic ties with the East Asian nation known for the strength of its electronic industry. Abdul Qahar Balkhi said in an interview with South Korea's Yonhap news agency that such a deal can also serve as an economic corridor connecting South and Central Asian countries. Balkhi is a member of the Taliban Cultural Commission. Afghanistan is rich in resources like copper, gold, oil, natural gas, lead, zinc, and gemstones, amongst others. These remain unexplored due to the 20-year-long war that began after the U.S. invaded the country in 2001. It's not clear how South Korea, which hosts 28,000 American soldiers, will respond to this request. Afghanistan's Panjshir province remains the only one not in Taliban control. The area is located to the northeast of the country's capital, Kabul. Former Afghanistan government chief peace broker Abdullah, who is also a native Panjshir resident, has been spearheading talks between the two sides for days now. As the negotiation continued on the fate of Panjshir, the city center and silent roads of the region resisting the Taliban were recorded by journalists. The Taliban took over the government in Kabul on August 15th. Participants of the inaugural Crimean Platform Summit in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv, on Monday reaffirmed their support for Ukraine. Speaking at the summit, U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm said that America is proud to support Ukraine as it marks the 30th anniversary of its independence. She stressed that the U.S. will continue to sanction Russia as long as it does not cease its aggression in the Donbas and Crimea regions. German Economy and Energy Minister Peter Altmaier reiterated that Germany is opposed to the annexation of Crimea, which is against international law. Russian forces entered the Crimean Peninsula in February 2014. President Vladimir Putin formally divided the region into two separate federal subjects of the Russian Federation the following month. Turkey and the United States, as well as the UN General Assembly, view the annexation as illegal. The region is one of the several sources of friction between Russia and Ukraine. 12% of Crimea's people are Muslims who have been subject to genocide in Russia for centuries. Authorities in Canada investigating a vandalism and break-in at a Toronto mosque, the city's police said on Monday. The caretaker at the Beit al-Jannah Islamic Center discovered the break-in on Sunday, Global News reports. Mosque President Atikur Rahman said the vandals threw out copies of the Quran which were on the shelves. He also said that they took CCTV camera recordings. Rahman told Global News that break-ins are happening more frequent than ever before. He attributed the attacks to Islamophobia. Police said break-ins occurred at the mosque in March and April, as well as June. But authorities said it was too early in the investigation to call the latest incident a hate crime. However, the police hate crimes unit has been notified. In a previous break-in, 14 of the 15 donation boxes were taken containing thousands of dollars. Toronto Mayor John Tory visited the mosque late Monday to demonstrate support for the Muslim community. Toronto is the largest city in Canada, with Muslims consisting of over 7% of the population. We will interview Atikur Rahman later on the show, so stay tuned. An internal probe has cleared a police officer who shot and killed rioter Ashley Babbitt during the January 6 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. The officer, who has not been named due to safety concerns, was found not guilty of wrongdoing, authorities announced on Monday. The U.S. Capitol Police said in a statement that the officer was within his rights to use deadly force and his actions were lawful. He will not face any form of internal discipline. The department said his actions potentially saved members of Congress and staff from serious injury and possible death. Babbitt was a 35-year-old veteran of the Air Force. On January 6th, she was unarmed but was with hundreds of others trying to push through the door in the Capitol, where the officer shot her. Babbitt's family has filed a lawsuit to get the name of the officer publicly released. They have also threatened to file a civil action lawsuit demanding millions of dollars, claiming Babbitt was the victim of excessive force. Former President Donald Trump has said in interviews and at rallies that he has spoken with Babbitt's family and that he demands justice for her death. It was Trump's rally on January 6th near the White House that ended with the violence on Capitol Hill. More than 500 rioters have been charged with crimes relating to the incident. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Welcome back. We have with us in the studio Atikur Rahman, the president of the Beit al-Jannah Islamic Center, which was recently broken into and vandalized in Scarborough, a suburb of Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Brother Atiq.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you that you're helping us in our difficult time.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what has occurred at your masjid?
Okay, it's Saturday night. We finished our Isha Salah at 10:30 and we left and we closed all doors and windows as usual every day. And 5:30 we came for Fajr Salah and we found some windows were open and some doors were open. And we found that they throw all our donation box. And they broke the donation box and they took some donation box, and also they throw the Quran in different places in the floor, and also in the basement we have an office, and they throw our office documents, and they broke the file cabinets, everything in the floor. And as you know that Islam, we have equal rights, so we have sister place also in our mosque. this separate room, and so they opened also the sister room. Also, they throw the Quran, and also there was a television hang on the wall. They also put in the floor.
Now, police say that currently there's no evidence of a hate crime, despite the fact that there were Qurans torn and thrown onto the floor. Have other incidents happened over the past year at your masjid?
It started 2018. And it happens 6-7 times, maybe 8 times, we don't remember. In 2019, it was 4 times. It was from March to June. We have 4 incidents there, and the police were there, and police we gave them the video surveillance clip to them, and so far we did not get any response from them. What was the result of the investigation, and anyone was brought to the justice or not? And so I saw in Toronto Star, the one police officer told that this is the first incident, and the other day report, they said there is for 2019 they have 3 or 4 incidents there. So that means police, they said they are contradicting their ideas.
So this is very interesting. I read that similar report as well, where the constable has said that this was the first case that they have been working on at the Islamic Center. Why do you think it is so? Why hasn't the police taken this seriously? And now, after President Trudeau has tweeted about this and left messages about this, do you think the police will take it more seriously this time?
Actually, they are serious. Yesterday, when the councillor was there, and also the Toronto mayor came there, and the police they are very more active now. Actually, when in the morning we called them at 10:30, and we called 10 o'clock, and after 20 minutes we had to talk. We got a chance to talk to them, and they told us to wait, and we wait till 1:30. They came 1:30, and they just took some notes, and they went away, and they came yesterday.
So, have these perpetrators ever left a message? Why do you think this is a hate crime?
Well, actually, we cannot classify the crime, right? We are not expert, right? So we can tell you the fact. So whether it is hate crime or vandalism, that can be identified by the expertise, right? We are not that. We can tell you the fact what happened in the mosque. And before the incident, what they did, they took out the donation box, and they took out the money, right? They broke the door or windows, and they take the money and the donation box. And this time they throw the all holy books in the floor, and they pretend that they also did some. They broke some donation box, or maybe they took. We had 15 opponents, but now we have 2 of them, and we had some credit card machine. I mean, the point of sale. They took all of them. So what is the difference between? Pardon?
I wanted to ask you, what is your community going through right now?
It's a difficult time. They are a little bit scared about this. But yesterday the mayor was there, and the leader of the opposition Ontario Parliament, they came there, and they are behind us. So now people are getting confident, and you see that the mosque run by donation. But after this and happening again and again, the people are not, they are some little bit lost their confidence on the law enforcement agencies here, because why it is happening again and again. That is the condition. And but Alhamdulillah, as you know, that all Muslims they love to pray in the mosque. People are coming, but still they have some confusion, and they scare also about this.
I can imagine. I'm sorry about that. Now, you spoke about donations. I'm sure events like this impact donations as well. Now, I'd like for you to speak a little bit about that, but more importantly than that, we wanted to find out how this is impacting the emotional health of your community, being vandalized over and over again like this 4 times. especially in right after a major Islamophobic attack happened in that area, in that region where the Afzal family was killed. How are you counseling your attendees at the mosque, and what sort of transparency is being shown by masjid leadership?
Okay, actually, you see, we always try to protect our musallis, who are the community people who are coming to the mosque. You see, after the London incident, what we did, we used to keep our parking lot open to pray, because as you know that during the pandemic, we have 6 feet these rules, right? Everybody has 6 feet distance between the two musallis. So what we did, we used to offer prayer in the parking lot. But now these days, and we are on the Kingston Road, now these days we park one row on the Kingston Road so that anybody cannot come, and when we are praying, right, nobody can come with the drive on us. So that's why we're protecting our people there, that they are safe when they're praying in the field, right? And actually this our community is very, very friendly, and we help each other, and we explain that we are safe. And from yesterday, when the leader of the opposition Ontario Parliament and Bill Belair, the Ministry of Safety in Canada, and he's our local MP, and also the MPP Dolly Begum, she was here, the mayor was here, and the councillors were here. Now people, they feel a little bit better that all the political leaders and executives, they are behind us, right? So we are actually, the action from yesterday, the people are feeling better than the day before yesterday.
And what have you been using to keep your community informed about what is occurring, what is happening with the masjid?
Well, they actually they know what is happening, right? Every time it is transparent, right? What is happening, whatever the incident happens, whatever the problem, we share with our musallis all the time, right? And we decide, or before we taking any decision on any incidents, we share with our musallis. And when it was in that day before Fajr Salah, so there are 30 people there, and we talked to them, and then we decided, okay, we should talk to the leaders and the police and all those things that we did. So our community people, we are always transparent to them, and we let them know what is happening.
That's great, because a lot of masajid leadership would not take that stance, and I'm so glad that you have, because it makes the people more confident in the masjid leadership. That's really great to hear from you on this. And now that this has become a political topic, there's been much mainstream media attention. What are you hoping from the Toronto Police Service in the future?
So actually, we want protection. And they promised us that they're going to make more patrols, and they will take care of this. And the Bill Belair, the Minister of Safety Minister of Canada, he also promised that he will do the proper investigation from the federal level.
Well, I hope your masjid does get the support and protection that it needs. Definitely, these times are trying, and it affects communities everywhere. So thank you so much for your time and for being here, and we hope your community stays protected.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody who is watching me, and thank everybody, all brother and sister who are supporting us in this difficult moment. Thank you very much again.
Well, that was Atiqur Rahman from Baitul Jannah Masjid that was recently vandalized. We're going to take a quick break before our next analysis segment, so stay tuned after these messages.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. In one of our previous in-depth analysis segments, we discussed the condition of infrastructure in the United States. Here are a few excerpts from the show. Let's watch.
Thank you, Hena. We have Professor Rick Geddes from Cornell. He's the founding director of Cornell Program in Infrastructure Policy. Welcome to Muslim Network, Professor.
Thank you, Malik.
So, are you happy with the $1 trillion bill which is going through Senate?
I think it's such an enormous bill, 2,800 pages in the Senate side. There's things that are both good and bad about the bill. But I think the passage of the bill itself, which crosses infrastructure sectors, multi-sectoral, many policy issues addressed in the bill, bipartisan bill, I think will have 70 votes in the Senate, is itself a very positive thing. And of course, Malik will have to analyze exactly what's in the bill once the House and the Senate reconcile and the president signs it.
So tell us what is good in your view in this bill.
Well, I think, again, it's kind of rare for the United States Congress to pass a bill that deals with heavy civil infrastructure holistically. Normally, infrastructure delivery in the United States is heavily siloed. And by that, Malik, I mean, typically Congress would pass a transportation bill, then a water bill, then an energy bill. And now, of course, we're all talking about broadband, which we're using right now. But this bill deals across infrastructure sectors with a number of problems in the United States infrastructure world that are endemic across sectors. So I think the fact that it's dealing with multi-sectors at once is a good thing. I think that the fact that it's addressing deferred maintenance, depending on the estimates, the American Society of Civil Engineers estimates about $1 trillion of deferred maintenance in the United States across infrastructure sectors. I think it'll help to reduce the backlog of that. So I think that those are some positive things. Also, the United States, Malik, has kind of surprisingly behind many other developed and developing countries in cooperation between the public and the private sector. So including the private sector to help improve infrastructure delivery. And I think the bill does a number of things that will help over the long term to improve public and private sector cooperation across infrastructure sectors.
Do you think maintenance is good enough for the future of our country?
You mean
you mentioned that it takes care of maintenance, which was overdue. But what about rebuilding for the future?
Yes, well, that I think is a very important consideration because our interstate highway system, they began construction in the 1950s, in the height of the Cold War. That was a long time ago. And it was designed and constructed quickly and in a certain way that fit that time to build out new and complete networks. And that was not just true of the interstate highway system, Malik. That was true of our energy system, our landline telephone system, many of our drinking and wastewater treatment systems. And I could go on, dams, levees, seaports, airports, and so on. So I think as we build back, right, we take care of this backlog of deferred maintenance, it should be done in a different way. And I can give you specific examples. Many of the interstate highways in the United States cut directly through a city. And of course, it divides the city in half. There's an elevated highway, I-81, right through Syracuse, a city not far from where I'm sitting right now, that really divides the city in half. So as we rebuild those interstates, we definitely want to rethink maybe the layout, the right-of-way, whether it should be a tunnel, whether it should be put in a trench with a covered trench. Also, Malik, new technologies. There's a huge host of technologies, smart stoplights, LED streetlights, methane capture. Methane is a major greenhouse gas at wastewater treatment plants. We could capture that methane and use it to create energy in a win-win situation. There's new technologies for that. They really abound in the infrastructure world. And I think as we rebuild, we need to better incorporate those new technologies. And there's a whole set of procurement methods that I think have been neglected in the United States that could really help state and local governments, which own 90% of the civil infrastructure in the United States. It's not federal. It's owned by smaller state and local governments, that those governments should really be adopting those new technologies as they rebuild.
So we recently came under attack when the viral attacks or different type of cyber attacks cause our grid system and infrastructure to face challenges. Does this bill address some of those concerns? Because we can build, but if somebody can destroy through software, so does it pay enough attention to software aspect of our grid systems?
It's a great question, Malik. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the final bill yet. Again, the House has their bill, the Senate has their bill. There have been, I think it's really a bipartisan issue. Cybersecurity is a huge issue in the United States right now with regard to infrastructure. You might be familiar with the Colonial Pipeline, a crude oil pipeline that was shut down due to a cyber attack. Many other examples. I mean, the hundreds of smaller businesses that are attacked regularly in a cyber sense. So I would hope that there's bipartisan consensus, that this could be crippling for U.S. infrastructure if, say, were there a major attack on one of our big energy grids, right? But it could be other smaller systems as well that are crippling. So I would hope that the final bill pays a lot of attention, just reporting, central reporting effort for different cyber attacks would be helpful. But of course, there's many more deeper and profound things that we could do. And this is all, Malik, falls under the heading of resilience of infrastructure, hardening the infrastructure to various threats that could either be from humans or from nature. So it's, I think, a big theme as we consider building back, rebuilding our infrastructure is really going to be this issue of infrastructure resilience. And that's climate change, which includes sea level rise. It can include hurricanes. It can include tornadoes. A whole bunch of wildfires are another issue. All these things need to be considered, if you will, in a new generation of U.S. infrastructure.
Professor Geddes, you also mentioned there are some bad things in this bill. Could you highlight what is wrong in there?
Sure thing, Malik. So one of the things I think is doesn't get enough attention is just spending money, but delivering, meaning procuring civil infrastructure in the way we have for the past 50 or 60 years is not going to solve some of the main problems, which are deferred maintenance, poor project selection in some cases, slow adoption of new technologies. We need to rethink the way infrastructure is delivered or procured. And there's a whole set of things we can talk about, Malik, that would improve it. But one that I'm a big fan of is bundling or wrapping project elements together. And that's design and construction when you do, and that could be renovation of an old facility as well as design and construction of a new one, in with operation and maintenance in a long-term contract. Long-term could be 25 or 30 years. That's called a DBOM, D-B-O-M, design, build, operate, maintain. And some projects in the United States are already delivered that way. But I think much more universal use of a DBOM contract structure, which requires the public owner to maintain the infrastructure at a certain engineering standard contractually over that 25 or 30-year period, that would help make sure we never get in this hole again. I mean, the question is, the United States is a relatively wealthy country. How did we get in the situation of having $1 trillion of deferred maintenance? It's because the procurement or the contracting approaches have not focused on maintaining infrastructure, operating it to a certain level. And contract structures like DBOMs, and there's others, can help with that. My point is, the bill, I think, at least the versions that I've read, doesn't do enough to try to change the way U.S. infrastructure is procured so that we don't, in, say, 10 years, we'll spend all this money, but in 10 years, we might be back in the same situation. So I think we really need to rethink our contract structures that way.
That's an excellent point, Professor. Could you share with me the way bill it is right now in the Senate? Is the funding adequate enough?
Well, that's been a big sticking point, Malik, and that relates to the question of how much is this bill going to add to the deficit, which, of course, is already enormous. And then we're going to add more to that versus how much of the bill is paid for. So it's really an open question of how much these various budgetary methods are going to help pay for the bill. So I think that's unclear. I think it's pretty clear that it will add to the deficit hundreds of billions of dollars, in cost. It remains to be seen exactly how much. Of course, to those points, Malik, my training is in economics, so I'm a fan of user fees, right? Or just a price or a rate or a fee, for the use of the infrastructure. And it's a question of who should pay for it. Should it be taxpayers? Should it be future taxpayers, our children and grandchildren, in the form of debt payments? Or should it be the users of the infrastructure? And so more user fees, mileage-based user fees, as much as you can, users of harbors and dredging, et cetera. Those things in an ideal bill would help to pay for the renovation of the infrastructure.
Well, that's a good point. And that reminds me, Professor Geddes, of your recommendation in an old article that the federal law, which prohibits providing amenities at the rest area, if those restrictions are lifted, that might become a source of funding itself. Do you think some suggestion like that is a part of this bill?
I'm sorry, Malik, what was the restriction?
In one article you have written, in the rest areas,
oh, yes,
they don't allow many amenities or food or things like that. And you suggest in one of your articles that if federal restrictions limiting that are lifted, that becomes a source of revenue for the maintenance of the infrastructure and roads.
Yes, that's great, Malik. That's, to get into the weeds, it's Title 23 of the United States Code that governs a lot of this. And there's actually a restriction on states developing interstate highway rest stops. So anyone who has driven on the interstate highway system in the United States knows what it's like to go pull over on a rest stop that's on the system late at night, and it's dark and it's kind of scary in some places, and it only has bathrooms and a few vending machines. Why is that? That's extremely valuable real estate, and it's because of a restriction that goes back to the 1950s that protected mom and pop diners. But now we're trying to squeeze more value out of the existing system, and that's called value capture. One of the obvious things to do, Malik, is to your point, is to repeal Section 111 of that and allow states to put in restaurants or charging stations for electric vehicles, or perhaps a restaurant. And of course, they can lease those things out and they get lease payments. So that money can help. The Australians pioneered this through an what they call asset recycling program. Those monies can be recycled or plowed back into other infrastructure that the state needs to renovate. So I could give you a whole lot of examples of that, Malik, of where just better, more efficient management of the system would extract more value from this old infrastructure, which in some cases is half a century old, and allow state and local infrastructure owners to use those newly freed up dollars to renovate existing infrastructure.
Professor Gates, moving a little bit towards the climate change. Today, the climate scientists of the world have issued a report that 2020 was the hottest on record, and this decade is hotter than any period in history of 125,000 years. Do you think the infrastructure bill, which we are thinking, is keeping in mind what is coming in next few decades?
I think so, Malik. I think there's a lot of awareness of this problem, probably more so than there ever has been in the past. I think there's several elements to answering your question. One is just changing the source of power, right, and switching to more renewable fuels. And there's a whole set of those. As you know, there's wind, there's solar, there's we at Cornell are working on earth source heating. So pumping water down deep where it's very hot and having hot water pump back up is a renewable energy source, biomass and methane capture and all these things. And I think the bill pays attention to that. Another piece of this is just as you rebuild the infrastructure, do you want to take into account climate change? Maybe you move a highway so it's not as close to the shoreline, or there's a whole set of things. Maybe you use materials. New materials. They're exploring new types of concrete. Concrete is actually, its production is CO2 intensive. So are there new ways of producing concrete that would reduce its carbon footprint? So I think, as you know, there's a whole set of things that need to take that into account. And I do sense, Malik, that there's a high level of awareness and a lot of thought. Maybe that's why the Senate is being slow, but that's okay. In thinking through climate change and reducing carbon emissions, reducing the use of fossil fuels, switching. It could be hydrogen-powered cars, could be electric cars. There's a whole set of new fuels, right, which have less impact in terms of greenhouse gases. I'm a big fan of any sort of methane capture. It doesn't just have to be wastewater treatment plants. Chicken farms, for example, produce a lot of organic waste, and that methane can be captured and then used to make a renewable energy source, right? So I think there's many elements to answering your question. And I think there's an awareness, again, how much the final bill, which maybe we'll see in the next week or so, is going to address that remains to be seen.
Well, before we get to the final bill, let's hope Senate passes it. But when it gets to the Senate and House reconciliation process, is there a possibility of experts and professors like you to be involved, or is it at the mercy of politicians merely?
That's a great question, Molly. I've heard that there's something like 2,000 organizations in Washington who have an interest in this. It's $1 trillion bill, $1,000 billion. And it's enormous spending, and it's enormously important. And there's all these different groups that are involved in lobbying Congress right now, as you and I speak, that are trying to nudge the process in one direction or another. Because there's so much money at stake. So I think the impact that a professor can have at this stage is minimal. I think the effect we can have is once the bill is passed and helping to analyze and interpret and take the good parts out of the bill and help state and local owners who actually own the infrastructure, to use these policy developments to their advantage.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Geddes from Cornell, for being with us.
Thank you very much, Balkhi.
Back to you, Hena.
That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube and Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.